Welcome to the As If That Happened podcast, where we found an excuse to have a chat about our favorite TV shows and movies and all our favorite entertainment. Today's episode is a movie chosen by you, and it's a Cinderella story.
It is. Oh, I'm so excited. I guess it's one of my favorite movies, and it is within like the 2000s kind of era. So it really falls into the modern ages of Cinderella. And in saying that as well, even though we all know what Cinderella's story is, this is more of a high school version. And with the older technologies of SMSing, emails, and just heavy base on relationship, but at the same time being very empowered with like believing in yourself, allowing yourself to like follow your dreams that you've had when you're like a kid and all that jazz, but still having the fairy tale aspects through the idea logic of Cinderella, or in this case, Sam Montgomery, who is the main actress or the main character, sorry, that is seen as Cinderella, and her connection with a fairy tale book that changes her whole entire life. But in saying that, we both have watched it a couple of times, I'm pretty sure. How do you feel about it, Shai?
I mean, I know this is technically your choice, your movie choice to bring to the table here for this podcast, but this is one of my favorite movies as well. This is one of those that I come back to quite often. I love Cinderella movies, or Cinderella adaptations. I've watched many of them, and this is still one that I come back to quite often. So I love this movie.
I feel like you can't get rid of it. That's what it is. You can't get rid of it no matter how many times they do it.
And people still count this one to be like the best one. It has that 2000s nostalgic feel still to it that a lot of people have for those kinds of movies. I mean, Hilary Duff, queen of that era. I found it so funny when you just said that it's old modern technology, because it is counted as like a modern adaptation of Cinderella, but because it's so much older for us now, flip phones, chat rooms, they're emailing to each other.
Can I just say that when I saw the phones, I'm like, oh my God, we had to deal with that back in the days. Like, that was nuts. Like, nowadays, it's like straight away like a touch phone. Everything's by your hands and all that, instead of like having to actually dial and like actually go 1, 2, 3, 4 just to get the S, and just waiting for the second S to come
I got
back.
so good at that. I remember like switching to, so before we had the touch phones, I also had one of those phones that had a full, like it had a full QWERTY keyboard. At the time, I had gotten so good at doing the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kind of keyboards that I actually had trouble with the actual full keyboard because I was so used to that one. But my dream was always to get a flip phone. I don't know if it came from this movie, but for the sake of this, maybe I'll say it was from this movie. But I always wanted a flip phone and I never got one. That was my dream for some reason.
Everyone wanted a flip phone. I feel like that was the thing back in the time. Like, if you didn't have a flip phone, you weren't good enough to be like to show your phone in public.
It just wasn't cool, to pull out a brick phone was very different than one like.
But just to go from like the very beginning, I did love the relationship that she had with her father, because it's something very wholesome, and especially with the way that he kind of grew her up to being like a tomboy instead of like a girly girl, or like having a mixture of the girl and the tomboy kind of aspects. So then she has the balance between the two. But because she grew up as a tomboy, she herself felt not like left out, but she was behind with all certain aspects of being a female version of herself, which is like the makeup and all this and that, which is like, it's totally fine. Like, everyone has their own different steps and all that. But I think the one thing that I just found really funny at the beginning was that no matter what the scene was, her stepmother, who's Fiona, that
Jennifer
that her
Coolidge,
father
love
bumped
her.
into. Right. She's such a good actress. But like the fact is that she'll do anything in her willpower to just make sure that it's the four of them instead of the five of them, which I found it really sad for Sam as a character, but I found it really funny that she'll do everything in her willpower to do it, which I'm like, that's a lot of effort for one person. And also her love for salmon, bruh,
I just
just
found it
because of
so funny.
yeah, because of the omega-3. But I think the reason why I just found it so funny that she highlighted salmon so much was because she's like, I need my omega-3 and it makes me smarter. And then she like quoted, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna say this quote wrong, but she also did mention that like so for Sam, in her case of scenario is that she's going to the same equivalent as what most students are going to right now, which is the HSC, and she's going to go to Princeton College, which is her dream college because her dad said that that's where you meet all the princes in Princeton. Anyways, the one thing that really got to me with that one scene, because we all know and love Sam as Cinderella because of her ambition to go further and beyond what she is capable of doing herself. But her stepmother, Fiona, I'm pretty sure I'm going to say this incorrectly, but she's like, oh, you don't need to go to school because people who go to school get a job and get smarter. You skip a couple and you already have a job, so there's no need for you to get the job. Oh, wait, go to like like college and stuff. I'm like, girl, you don't know what this reality is. Like, holy cow, this
I mean,
is
she's kind of
what.
right though, right? We finished our education quite a bit ago, but it's not quite a bit ago. I just finished. But there's sometimes when you question, it's like, do I really need this?
I mean,
I
that
mean,
is
this is
so
only to
true.
get a job. And then when you finish, like finding a job, even with a degree, is like, what kind of useless shit did I just put myself through 4 years for?
But I did just find it so like interesting to say that. And then I had like a little giggle. I'm like, this is really funny, but I just found it so ironically
Oh, it's supposed to
hilarious.
be funny. 100%.
Hey, people are successful with or without a degree. So either way, it works out. And there shouldn't be like any dictation as to like saying to anyone like, oh yeah, you should definitely go or you shouldn't go or whatever it is. Like we all have the power to do whatever we want. And I think this is why I really love this show, because it really shows the empowerment behind it. But what I found really interesting within the high school period, like the high school scenes actually, is that they do a bit of referencing from different movies. Like when the popular girls came through after like the car park scene and going into the hallway, you had the vibe of like Mean Girls because those three popular girls and everyone's like, oh my god, sorry, and then like move, 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 move. Why are we friends with them again? And you're just like, oh my god, is this like a Mean Girl like kind of reality check? Which I just found so interesting. And also when they bumped into the actor from Big Bang, Howard, I'm not too sure what was his character's name inside the movie, but that really surprised me.
Terry.
Oh, Terry, whoops. Like, yeah, like when they bumped into Terry, I'm like, wait, I've seen this person from somewhere. And my God, just by looking at all the characters, they look so like, I know this is like a really old movie, but they look so young and they still look really good now.
They do. Can I just say, I had a quick, like, it was kind of a forgiving thought because at the same time, who you're attracted to doesn't really matter. But when she was meeting, what did you call it? Nomad under the disco ball at the homecoming dance,
Yeah.
and she thought it would turned out to be Terry, and she was so disappointed. It was kind of a little bit sad because I was like, what if it was him? And you're just like, nah, not this guy. But of course, when like,
A board mission, just what was like that.
but then, so I did think that. But then when Austin Ames did come, she was also like, well, this must be like a practical joke on me. So no thanks either. So she both had it was a equally she didn't want either of them at the first thought.
Yeah.
So I was thinking because I thought if she had rejected Terry just because it was Terry, and then Austin Ames comes and suddenly she's like, oh my god, this guy, yes. Then I'll be like, oh, that's a little bit mean.
Yes, no.
But she did, yes, she did end up saying no until he's like, no, 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 let's go have a chat. I do think
Yeah.
that usually in the first meeting is like at the ball, and that's where they end up meeting. But here they'd already been talking for about a month. How do
Yes, it's
you
been a month.
how do you feel about him having a girlfriend while he was talking to her?
I honestly, okay, I feel conflicted about it, but in saying that, I kind of feel like he was forced into the relationship with Shelby, who is
The
we
mean
can
girl.
the part of the mean girls group,
That is
but
actually
she's
something that they've sort of deviated from compared to like the original Cinderella story,
yeah.
in that usually it's just the stepmother and stepdaughters who are kind of conspiring against her, but now we have an extra evil evil character in Shelby here.
Yeah. Yeah. And then she kind of just she joins in that kind of like evil gang and all that jazz. Like it's already hard enough that Sam has to be the slave of her stepmother and work at the diner that needs to be like her dad's.
Can we have a side note real quickly? One thing I have never understood in this movie, why were they making fun of her as diner girl for having a job? I know they're probably all rich and they all have their money and stuff, but why is that was that the thing they teased her about? Was having a job.
I
I'm
think it's
like,
because
in
of
high school.
class.
I know, but
Yeah,
at the same
no,
time,
I
like
think
it's
it
like
was class.
in high school, if you had a job, you were the people who were up there for us because you were the one with money. And obviously these people had their like parents' money, so they didn't have to work. But so I'm kind of giving myself an answer now as I'm talking it through. But I don't know, it was just always like she's working. She's has a job. Like, what do you guys expect to do after this? Anyway, that might be just a different thing compared to because we didn't have like super rich people in our schools, so there was
Yeah,
no.
that's true. Everyone was like working at
Yeah,
Macca's or like a fast food place, and then
you
you
wanted
saw
to
them
be
get like
working to
really
have
good.
money. Yeah, you didn't.
Yeah, like they got good things after working, and I'm like, that's pretty
So
cool. I want to work.
the people who had jobs for us were the more popular kids. Anyway, going back.
Oh yeah, going back to your question actually, with how I felt with Austin messaging Sam whilst he was seeing his girlfriend in quotation marks at the time. um, I honestly I have really, really heavy mixed feelings about it because he's not technically cheating on her because he was just talking as friends, but then he developed feelings as they kept talking. But then he knew that he had to stick with her, like with Shelby, throughout like the whole duration because he was known to be, he had to like put on this persona um until like the end of graduation because of his dad and because he was dating Shelby and Shelby's part of like the popular group and everything else. So he had to play around with that and because he was the captain of the football team and everything. So I think that's why I'm not too angry, but it's kind of like you are kind of cheating and all that. But I do appreciate how they grew and how they kind of blossomed in their relationship and that led up to the dance.
So going back to the messaging, I also agree with you. It does feel a little bit like emotional cheating because he did get into this, but he started off probably not with the intention of end up falling in love with this girl.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
imagine if you're her and then you're going to the homecoming dance or what is it, Halloween dance. If this dude that was your boyfriend just randomly at a diner about 2 hours before you're going breaks up with you, I mean, how would you feel? Right? Like, Even though she's a mean girl, I kind of fell for her in that moment because I was like, what a
I don't
time. Why
know.
not say it like the day before, you know? Give her at
I
least
kind of
24
felt
hours. Give her like 30 minutes to be like, excuse me.
you know what? I kind of saw it coming. He knew that he was going to kind of do it on
Well,
Halloween.
he
Like,
knows. I just think it was cowardly of him not to give her any time to.
I mean, he did say he would like to speak to her alone, but then she's like, oh,
That's still
like
2 hours before the dance. Or whatever time it was. I'm just talking, I'm not talking about how he did it. I just mean the timing. When he
I
had
know.
already
I
asked,
I honestly
he
think
already
he
asked
did a ballsy
Sam.
move, which I
No,
don't mind
I do not
it.
appreciate it. He had already asked Sam the day before. He already told his guy friends the day or the morning of. He had enough time to tell her between then and not just before they were about to leave.
I mean, again, we don't know what happened in between because we only saw what's going on through Sam's perspective, like especially that time where she had to go see Fiona come out from the baking. I honestly,
He had time to think I was
no, he was
doing all.
working.
I mean, he was working. He was playing softball. Or no, he
No,
was playing football.
no, I'm pretty sure he was working because what happened was that Sam was playing baseball, like practicing baseball, right? And then it hit over, but then there was a scene. There was a scene
Okay,
where he
then
was at the car wash.
why not before class that day? They would have seen each other before that day.
Or
What
again, we
about
can
the day
always
before? Or what about the day before he was going to
or
even ask her?
or if not, we can say that the directors wanted drama and they got drama.
I just think it
So
was a shitty move on his part. And you cannot convince me otherwise. I know she was a shitty person, but I would have hated to be in her shoes. Is all I'm saying. Like, put her
I
yourself in
mean,
her
I do
shoes.
feel that part. I do feel that
Imagine
part. But
thinking,
like,
this is my boyfriend. He doesn't even need to ask me to go to the dance because it's a given because he is my boyfriend. And fucking dude just decides, I'm breaking
in
up with
all
you.
honesty, though, I have to admit, I have never seen Shelby or Austin do anything romancy together as like a couple. Like we
Well, they
just
were
knew
like
that they were just
talking or
there.
something in the beginning. I don't know what they were doing. Like when they were first introduced, they were next to the car. Like
Yeah, but like they weren't like
that doesn't mean they weren't together. Have some
you just don't
empathy for
know.
the girl.
I'm just saying, we just wouldn't know.
We should talk about the romance part first when they first meet.
Which I love. If I'm having to be honest with myself, this is probably the one scene that every girl that has watched this movie would want in their life. At least once to happen in their life, but like in a different alternative theme, which was when they met at the Halloween homecoming. But as soon as he took Sam out and underneath the gazebo with the flowers, fairy lights, and we can fantasize whatever the people like, whatever you guys want to wear on that scene and whatnot. But that just made it magical. But at the same time, it made them know that they both really liked each other, even though he's like, okay, so 20 questions. If I get it right, will you tell me who you are? And she's like, oh, let's go 10 because of her curfew, which I was like, I was dying inside. I like as soon as I heard that, he's like, I'll take it. But I did love that scene. Like I would replay it and put on repeat every single time, and especially with the song as well. Like this movie has one of the best soundtracks, the best
I
soundtracks ever.
actually, it's gonna sound really insane, but after I watched this movie, I went and looked up the soundtrack on Spotify and added it to my playlist.
I was literally thinking of the same thing as well. Like every single one of them, I'm like, yep, I can definitely do this. And
I was
well,
singing along when they were playing Jesse McCartney.
but the one thing I did appreciate is that both Austin and also Sam as characters really do care about the environment. I know this is like jumping back to like the beginning where the grass was like absolutely green compared to all her neighbors. They're brown because brown grass or like dead grass means that it's poor people and they apparently have so much money to kill and they can waste like water, and how metaphoric it could be towards like the end of it, which
In
will
Australia,
jump into that.
we can really relate to being in a drought and having to conserve water. I think that was a really smart way to show how little the stepmother Fiona cares about everything else except for her status as to be seen
Yes.
as like this rich family. Because actually, do you remember the scene where because Shelby is not friends with the twins, even though it seems
Mhm.
like they are in the same group, they're not friends. And Shelby was like, why am we like, why are they talking to me? Or why are they, you know,
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
and they said, oh, they gave you like a Prada bag or some designer bag. It's like, I think that was fake. Like they still have this need for other people to perceive them as rich, even though they're not. Because all they own
Yeah.
is the diner.
Yeah, that's all they own. And not like, not only that, I'm pretty sure the twins are trying to be, oh, so the twins are Gabriella and Brianna. So both Gabriella and Brianna are just trying to hit towards that high social rocky inside like high school times where you just wanted to be a part of the popular kids. Like, let's be real, we've all wanted to be there once in our lives, but some of us were lucky, some of us weren't, and that's okay now because we're all equal now. But no, I do get what you mean. Like,
I think everyone except that little trio was mindful of mindful of the drought, hopefully. So after that, then
all right, like Austin wanted to find out who Cinderella was, and that's when the whole commotion of um it almost sounds like, almost looked like I'm missing a pet kind of like pamphlet, but please tell me who the Cinderella is. And I kind of find that absolutely adorable the way that he executed it, but I'd be like really embarrassed if I was Sam herself, because like her character on her own, she's very shy and she doesn't want conflict on herself, but she was she was loving the attention. And the one thing that I laughed the most was when his friends were like, oh, we've gathered a whole bunch of girls that were with you at the dance. And he's like, oh no, we are not going through this. You guys are all dead and all this and that. And they're like, no, 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 it'll be fine. And they only went through like 3 girls before they were like, oh yeah, nah, go back to school. Like, go back to your classes. What are you all doing here?
it was kind of funny because they did show him actually seeing Sam and he didn't even recognize her. And it's so funny because all she wore was a mask, which hides some things, but she was still blonde and, you know,
Yeah,
white.
like she was still her.
But like it was just so funny to me to be for him to be like, you know, you're so beautiful and all that jazz, and then he couldn't even recognize her.
Yeah, and especially when he was like, I should remember these eyes. And I'm
Mm.
like, huh,
Should
you
you?
sure, man?
Should. But then they did expose. Okay, so when they did that whole play thing with reading out the emails and stuff,
I
I
found
actually
that
found that
so
really
low.
funny.
Oh no, I found it so low. Like I cried during that because I'm like, this is the worst form of bullying. Like,
Obviously, breach
especially
of privacy, don't approve. That's not what I mean by funny, by the way. I mean like the whole production of it for the twins to be so involved in this, like this thing that this whole play setup thing that they were doing just to get back at her. It was just
That's
so
true.
like why they were like in, you know, she was in a full-on wedding dress and it's like what, but I don't know. It was so bizarre. And actually, I kind of, I used to always be confused at this scene because, and I guess this is what her point was at the end, when she made her very iconic monologue. And I'll get to that because that's my favorite part of the movie. But he was like mad at her after because he was embarrassed, obviously, because his secrets were now out. she's also embarrassed because her secrets were out. And it's worse for her because it seems like she was trying to get in with Austin, who is of like, in school terms, of a higher status than her. So she looks like she's like social climbing. For
Yeah,
him,
but she wasn't really.
no, but for
Yeah.
him, nothing. It's just like his secrets with her, his dad is out. But why is he angry at her? Or
I feel
I
like
guess he didn't say he was angry, but it was just, it felt like he you
he
know,
looked
he
angry.
didn't reach out first. She ended up going
No,
to have that
I was
monologue.
really like the amount of times I've seen this movie as well. Like I really thought that in that scene, in that one split second, you would have expected the dude to like jump up and run after her
That's what I thought. I
instead
thought he was
instead
gonna
of like
like
her best
defend
friend just
her.
like
I thought
yeah.
he was gonna get up and you know, be like, you guys did a shitty thing. You read our private emails, because her privacy was breached too. But he looked annoyed at her.
But you know what was a really funny that I saw in the background? The teachers were there and they didn't do
They didn't do
anything. And I'm
anything.
like,
Oh, but to be fair, maybe they thought it was just part of the play because they, you know, they didn't.
That's
Oh
true.
no, I take that back. They did have names at the end. They said there's Austin names and our diner girl. That's why everyone ended up
Yeah, it's
laughing. The
like give
teachers
it
did.
up for your Cinderella. Diner girl Sam McGovern. I'm like, that's so low. I hate you.
But
I was
it
so
was just such a mistake.
angry.
I was angry. So this is why it's like I can't defend him even in the breakup scene, because this dude is just coward in the beginning. Which, to be fair, that is supposed to be, I guess, his character, because he couldn't even stand up to his dad yet. He couldn't break up with Shelby until apparently he you know, he was sure he loved somebody else. And in this scene, he should have stood up for her, because she was the
He
one
has
they were
so many
laughing at.
opportunities.
And he just like sat there like he was the only one being hurt.
Yeah, and especially like the scene after that, like that hit me hard. Like her stepmother destroyed her life, to kind of say, in like a nutshell. Yeah, I felt so bad and I actually cried with her and I'm like, holy cow. And I hardly cry in a like in a movie. So I'm like, this movie is doing things to my emotions. Like it's stirring the pot with anger, love, and sadness all at once. I don't understand how to contain all this. But it just really hurt me when it's like when she read it, it's like not accepted and she and then like her stepmother's like, you still have a job at the diner. You want a cookie? Yum.
I
Like,
love
what?
I just love that delivery. It's like, okay.
Like, what the hell, man?
Oh, I love her. She's
But
so funny.
before we do jump to like the ending part, the one thing I do want to highlight that I just could not stop laughing was when the stepmother, when she came to pick up the two twins at the dance, she got Botox as
Oh
well.
yeah.
And then they're like, you don't look angry. She's like, it's the Botox. Can't show emotions. I'm like, oh my God.
But my favorite scene, my favorite part of the movie.
Drum roll, please.
It's, I just loved when she finally stood up for herself.
Yes.
I mean, not only to her stepmother
That was beautiful. I freaking love her relationship.
and everyone quitting, because it's like the only reason this whole community even was keeping this diner afloat was because of you. And she realized she had more than just her stepmother as her family. She had these whole other people as her family. And then when she went to go see Austin, and I thought, yes, because like I said, I was so angry at him for making it seem like he was the only victim of whatever his girlfriend did.
Yeah.
He just never went out to defend her. He still was still captain. Nothing had affected him, really. And she went into that locker room and she had her speech. She said, like, all of that hurt me and did nothing for you. I was like, yes, you are so right. And she didn't let him get a word in because he didn't deserve it. He hadn't spoken out at all that whole
Even though
time.
he tried, like I know for a fact is that he did try, but then I saw him like delete the message. I'm like, why would
Yeah.
you do this? He had the opportunity to like hi, are you okay? Blah 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 blah. But he just didn't. I'm like,
Because it's his own
why?
friends too, and his own teammates that were kind of joining in on the bullying.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that speech was just so good because she was knowing what she was worth, and it didn't matter what he, whether he defended her or not. And she was like, I was being authentic every time we talked.
Like, I think after hearing that as well, like it makes, like, I know that for myself, when I heard it, I'm like, yes, I feel powerful, I feel strong, like I like believe in myself, which is one of the best core values that I know that most movies would probably highlight in some cases scenarios, but this one just really hit home for me. Like, yes,
Yeah. And I think they
girl
really needed to
power.
have that scene before they got to, how Cinderella
Yeah.
goes, prince and princess always end up together. So you knew they had to end up together, but she needed to have that moment to have everything be her choice, and that she stood up for herself, and it was his turn to, like, the ball was in his court, whatever he wanted to, if he wanted to step up to the plate or not. And he did. He finally stood up to his dad.
And he stood up to get the girl. And one of the best metaphors, which relates back to the drought scene, is that she waited for him for this drought to end, and as soon as they got together, the drought ended, and he's like, I'm so sorry that you had to wait before the rain, like after the rain came. She's like, that's fine. And I'm like, oh yes, no more drought.
Yeah, it was sweet. Then we had the after, which I think was I love how she's just like, everything just fell into place after that. Just after
Yeah.
she's, took ownership of her own life, she took
Mm-hmm.
control.
Yeah, and especially with that hidden will, and Fiona's like, I've never seen my husband's hidden will. Girl, why are you trying to hide the fact you've given her the will? But like, honestly, it's one of the best movies to watch, even up until this day and age, even though it was produced and aired out in like 2004. It is one of the best movies, and we want to hear what you guys also think about it. But other than that, please do stay safe, turtles, wherever you are in the world, and spread the joy near and far. And until next time, see you in the next episode. Bye.